It enabled a large number of global and local organizations to achieve breakthrough performance by realizing the potential of their people and creating a talent advantage. In October 2008, Anil and other co-founders together of Grow Talent entered the field of education by creating SOIL, the School of Inspired Leadership, as I've already mentioned. This innovative school has been co-created by a consortium of 32 leading firms such as Aditya Birla Group, Hindustan Unilever, Infosys, etc. In August 2010, a research study of IIM Ahmedabad named it as a game changer in higher education, and in November 2010, the case study on the model of SOIL was named as amongst the top 3 innovations in India Corporation by an eminent jury of the All India Management Association. Anil has been adjunct faculty to leading business schools such as Indian School of Business, Kelley School of Business, Indiana University, GMI, Flint, Michigan, Antioch University, Seattle, Ohio University, and University of New Brunswick, Canada. He began his career with Tata Motors in 1975 after completing his MBA. He is the founder of Asia Consultancy Services and was its CEO till 2001. He serves on the academic committee of CDP, the Leadership Institute of Fontainebleau, is a member of the Global Compassion Council Charter for Compassion International, chairs the National Committee on Human Resources of the CII, and is a trustee of Chinmaya Mission, a global spiritual NGO. So without any further delay, I'll now hand over the session to Anil. Anil, I am now handing over the session to you, making you the presenter.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, friends, and welcome to this time and to this space. I am Anil Sachdev, as you already know. You may call me Anil, and let's enjoy this adventure and learning through this electronic medium. It's a beautiful afternoon in Gurgaon after some days of the cold weather here, and I hope wherever you are, whichever part of the world, you are enjoying sunny weather and that you are in the right frame for this interesting conversation for us to do that.
Anil, I'm sorry to interrupt.
I just wanted to talk today about, I have some, yes.
Sorry to interrupt, your webcam transmission is again showing still. I cannot see any movement.
Okay, I think we can switch off the webcam and just continue the conversation just like that. Okay?
Sure. You can switch it off from your end, Anil.
Okay, I can switch it off at my end as well. All right.
All right. Please carry on.
Okay. All right. So I just wanted to welcome each one of you to this very interesting theme, that why do I need to change my career track? I don't know about you, but a large number of young people in this part of the world, when they are very young, they have to make a career choice. Should I go into science? Should I go into humanities? And choices like that. And before we realize it, we all take certain subjects. Many of us, before we realize what's happened, we become engineers. And then before we can even have time to think about what engineering means, the usual rituals start in campuses very early these days, of companies coming to campus and are competing with each other to get into the good companies. And then all of a sudden, a year later, we find ourselves sitting in front of a screen, writing code. Some of us really have passion for writing code. Some of us have passion for everything in technology. But some of us begin to wonder, is this really what I wanted to do with my life? Is this what life is all about? And the choices I made when I was 15 or 16, and now I am 24 and 25, 8 years later, and I'm asking myself the question, may I do something about this trouble that I'm having with my inner voice telling me, is this really how you want to spend the rest of your life? And you know, the other day we had this wonderful conversation with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and he was conducting a special teaching for about 100. All of us was, what is the most important question that you may ask yourself every day? And that's what I'm asking each one of you. What do you think is the most important question you ask yourself every day? And the Dalai Lama mentioned the question is, how do I spend my time? Time is the most important resource given to us. And the way we spend our time can have a very profound impact on our life. So, in response to this particular question, therefore, there are several things that are coming to my mind. If you look at the world outside today and look at the context, we have the economic crisis. People say the US is getting out of it. There are early signs in Europe. China has slowed down. India has perhaps had its most difficult economic time in the last few years. And of course, we are seeing all these social upheavals. We are seeing climate changes, terrorism. We are seeing new movements of people, Occupy Wall Street, the Arab Spring, the Aam Aadmi Party, and India against corruption. We are seeing all amazing things that are happening, and we call ourselves in India the country with the youngest population of the world. And then we say we have world leaders like Obama, which Obama promises much, but there is also the metaphor that there are difficulties of promising and then your own system fighting you to push back on the dreams that you have for yourself and the world. So I think really there are four most critical questions. And these questions could really have a profound impact on our lives. The first question is, who am I? Am I this name? Am I this 24-year-old man born in a particular family? Am I my degree and this engineering education that I have got? Am I my hobbies? Who am I? And I think this is a very, very profound question. Who am I? Second, why am I here? Why am I in this world? I think depending upon whether you believe in this worldview or not, there's a way of looking at it in the Indian ethos which we say that the human birth is given to people with great difficulty. And the reason we are born is because there is a purpose. The reason you and I are having this conversation today is not by accident. This was meant to happen. This is not an accident that you signed up for this webinar, and this is not an accident that you are being asked this very important critical question. Why are you in the human form? What's the purpose of your own life? Where do you want to go? What is your own vision for your life? And how do you get there? Once you know who you are, once you know the reason for your existence, the purpose of your life, the vision that you have, then how do you actually act with this awareness? Which means the awareness as answer to these questions. How do you act with this awareness? In our understanding of who we really are, and before we talk about changing career tracks from being engineers and software developers and techies to doing something else, there's a far more fundamental question. There are 6 layers of each one of us, the 6 layers of self. The outermost layer is the body and the 5 senses, our touching, our smelling, our seeing, and so on. These are the senses which give us the perception of the world. They provide us the data. They also show up as diversity. After this, we have the layer of instinct, that we are seeing something through our perception and sense organs, but we try to make information from the data of perception through a level of instinct. After that, we begin to ask ourselves the question, how do I feel about the perception? When I see somebody, what kind of feeling that it invokes in me? When I see a sight, when I hear something, what kind of an emotional experience comes up in me? Out of which is born the strong point of compassion, where I want to do something about what I feel. After that, from the emotional level, I begin to process and say, what's my most important choice? What kind of decision am I moved to take? I'm seeing somebody, let's say, in pain through perception. My instinct is to help him. My emotional level experience says, yes, I can feel the person's pain. I can put myself into their shoes and I want to do something about it, which is compassion. And then the brain begins to make a choice to say, I will take this decision. This is how I'm going to help this person. So that's the ethical choice when I'm surrounded by these stimuli around me. However, even when I make an important choice which makes me decide something, there are past habits and values and even my fears. Oh, what will happen to my time if I go and ask them? What is in it for me? Which are all things about self-centeredness and the ego. And once we learn to transcend this particular fear or past habit or our past values to do something new, and we know how to transcend our ego, we reach the final stage, which is really our innermost being, which is why we are called human beings. We are not called human doings from the body. We are not called human feelings at the emotional level. We are not called human thoughts or thinkers, which is just one level. We are not called human aspects of ego or fears. Ultimately, we are all called human beings. A being is about celebrating the life-giving force in each one of us, which is a state of pure awareness. Inside every human being is this fountain of unlimited potential, the truth within. Every human being has tremendous potential. Research shows that we use only 2% of our brain. Further research shows that we can do amazing things with our emotional self to build relationships. Research shows we can do amazing things even with our physical capabilities, but we don't develop them. And so, when we realize that deep inside us is the pure life-giving force which is limitless, then we understand the true nature of this conversation on potential. You see, I want to introduce to you early in this webinar today the concept that beyond the question about changing the career track from engineering to management or anything like that is ultimately the question to say, how do I define my own success in life? So I asked you this question, what is success to each one of you? Is success getting job promotions? Is success earning more money? Is success meaning getting more on-site development in countries like North America or Europe? Is it getting stock options? Is it building a good home for your near and dear ones? Or is success something much more different for you to say, the reason I want to talk about success is because I dream about leaving a legacy. I want to do something significant in my life, in my field, in my organization, in society. If I want to do something significant in my society, it means I really am trying to make a difference. I'm not going to listen to the conversation around me which says that the world cannot be changed, India cannot be changed. But I want to be part of the conversation where I want to take responsibility for the state of our world, because I believe success for me is making a difference. M-A-D, making a difference. So I have this madness inside me which tells me I have this cause that is very dear to me and I want to make a difference there. My teacher Swami Chinmayananda used to say, when you identify a cause in your life that makes you rise in love, not fall in love, rise in love, then such an individual becomes a very powerful leader, because he would tell us the world's most powerful leaders are the world's best followers. They find a cause bigger than themselves. They deeply love that cause. And when your cause is one of higher purpose, which is of spreading happiness to others, you discover extraordinary talent in yourself, which you didn't even know that it existed, and you transcend all your limitations. Therefore, this is the subject that we call inspired leadership. Inspired leadership that is not same as motivated leadership. See, motivation is when somebody motivates you. Inspiration is when you get deep inspiration from inside. So inspired leaders understand that they understand these 6 layers of self, and they know that their innermost layer is the unlimited potential. So they know that leadership for them is leading the way they perceive and act through the bodies, the way they relate to others through their emotions, the way they think through their thoughts, and they know that they can be led by the unlimited, powerful consciousness and spirit within. So they are not trapped in other people's choices. They make conscious choices. And when they enable others to do so, they become very powerful leaders. Now, let's come to the brass tacks. This is really the deep philosophy that I talked about. How do we practice that? Here are 4 simple steps which are recommended to you. First, ask yourself the question, right from a young age till today, what were the moments in my life when you really came alive? The moments which gave you the maximum joy. When you and your classmates in school, or your neighbors in the community, or you and your family, or you and your colleagues at the workplace did some of your best work. And when you did that best work, what did you discover about yourself? What gives you that life-giving moments of aha, the best of what is? So first, learn to appreciate your own strengths. Every individual has certain strengths and certain gifts. And the real meaning of the word education is know yourself, which means know your strengths. The second part is, once you have discovered your strengths, which are your uniqueness and which are very different from anybody else's uniqueness, because God makes every person in a very unique way, then the question is, how do I dream to leverage this discovery? That means the second D in the 4D is dreaming. How can I leverage my gifts and my strengths towards creating the highest common good in the world? And third, once you have made a powerful dream or a vision to say how I can use my strengths to make our world better. The definition of the world for Mahatma Gandhi, it was for the whole country. For you, it might be just your own family. It doesn't matter what your zone of influence is. But the question must be asked, how can I use my strengths towards serving the needs of those who matter to me? When I do that, I create a powerful vision for myself. Once I have done that, I then created design. That means if this is the dream, how do I convert that into an ideal future by focusing on some specific steps? How do I design the future? By working on some specific goals that matter to me. And the last point is, once I'm clear on the design of constructing my future, how do I empower myself by learning and adjusting and improvising? Therefore, delivering on my own promise to myself about my own dream. So this is what we call the 4D. Discover yourself at your best. Dream with that discovery a powerful future. Create a very specific design of focusing on some critical factors which are important. And then hold yourself to the discipline of making the execution happen on your dream. So, to summarize, when you discover your gifts, and you might do this after the workshop or the webinar today, you might, in your silence of your own, take a quiet place, sit down and say, right from the young age to today, if I make my life map, when was I at my best and most joyful? What were those moments? What actually happened? Who were the people involved? What was special about this experience? What enabled me to give up the best? And what does this teach me about my own strengths? And do this exercise with childlike enthusiasm. Don't do it with a tired mind which is already full of anxiety for the future or regret about the past. Enjoy this process of sitting down and asking yourself the question. And then, after this process is over and you have made notes about your strengths, you might want to then say, what is the story I have been telling myself about my own self? What have I been calling the high points and low points of my life? And what has also, on the other hand, caused some kind of low points of sadness or regret or guilt? That has been the story of my life so far. What would I like the story of my life to be in the future? Imagine a day many years from now and imagine what should be the story of my life unfolding. What should I be speaking about my life to others, which is full of authenticity, which makes me truly happy about my future? Once you have done that, then ask yourself this important question. Based on the story of my life, what is my own calling? You see, this word calling is a very special word. Calling comes from deep inside. This calling doesn't come from the body. It does not come even from your emotional mind. It does not even come, it's not an intellectual exercise. But when you completely are silent and are fully focused on this question to say, why am I in this world? What is the purpose that I have been born? And some of the indications to that are from the moments which have given you the maximum joy, because the ones which have given you the maximum enthusiasm. Do you know that the literal meaning of the word enthusiasm is enthusiasm, being one with God? And so ask yourself the question, the ones which gave you joy is your calling. Now ask yourself the question, to what extent is the way you're leading your life today personally and professionally aligned to your calling? What changes do you need to bring about in the way you spend your time every day? What are the things you need to learn more, which we call competency? What are your own unique strengths that you should be using a lot in order to develop this competency? Let me give an example. Let's say your strength is analytical ability. And let's say your one aspect that you need to develop more in order to become a better and happier person is how to work in a team or how to develop deeper relationships. Then ask yourself the question, how can I use my analytical ability to become better at dealing with people? Then say, what are the specific steps I will take to develop these competencies? For example, spending time with those who are very good in dealing with people. For example, watching videos on emotional intelligence. For example, attending some courses on how to become better at teamwork. And by doing your analytical ability research, you will be able to find methods to improve your teamwork, as an example. And then ask yourself the question, how can I spend the time in the most purposeful way by focusing on things that truly matter to me, by learning aspects that I need to learn, and by leveraging my gifts? And then ask yourself the question, how can you reduce the activities which are wasting your time? And how do I therefore make it way about, because if you look at, and if you do this thinking for yourself, let's say for the next 30 days, keep a time chart on how you spend your time every day. How many hours do you sleep? How much time do you end up eating? How much time do you spend on your regular chores like bathing, toilet, etc.? Do you take time for short prayers or meditation? Do you take time every day for exercise, yoga, gym, walk, etc.? How much time do you end up spending commuting to work? How much time are you spending on your work and professional development, including networking every day? How much time you spend with your family, socializing with friends, in NGO and community service, in reading which is not work related, watching some kind of television or surfing on the net, any hobbies like music, sports, etc. So you might want to do a time utilization survey. Once you have done that, you will then say, if I really want to make my life one to move towards a purpose that matters to me, what should I start doing more of? Or what should I start doing that I'm not doing today? What should I stop doing? And what should I do less of? For example, wasting time, having meaningless conversation, meaningless surfing, watching some news channels which are just providing just some loud pitched arguments leading to nothing, so on and so forth. So what happens next? I think the question I'm asking you is, it's not a conversation on how do I become from an engineer to a manager and to a leader, but you must realize that you have a cause that you deeply care about. You begin the journey of developing yourself and then ask yourself the question, I'm an engineer, I'm working, what kind of education would enable me to develop in this holistic manner that I'm talking about? What kind of education will help me to discover who I am? Help me to define my own vision. Help me to define my own strengths. Help me to define my own purpose. Help me to define my own development plan. And help me to find a way to invest my time so that I become a powerful leader, so that I rise in love, so that I really create a huge difference to the world. And once you have done that, then ask yourself the question, what are the sources of this learning? What kind of schools of higher education are available to me in different parts of the world or in India, which give me this holistic education? And how can I get meaningful information to act on the answers of all these questions? And then, once you have done that, then you are ready to begin the act of actually transforming yourself from an engineer, from a techie, to a holistic leader. The reason we created the School of Inspired Leadership, working with companies like Tata's and Mahindra and Infosys, Unilever and Johnson & Johnson and many such companies on leadership development. And with the help of all our friends in industry, we created the School of Inspired Leadership, SOIL, which is like a nursery for human growth. And we said, we will take people who are already engineers, who are working in industry and who have spent a few years, and now they are asking themselves questions on things, deeper questions like, what's the purpose of my life? How do I make an impact? How do I transform the country in which I'm living? And so we thought we will create a one-year program for them. So they take a year off from their company. Some of them take leave. Some of them leave the job and come and study with us. And these people then are, in a very intense way, they go through the exercise right from the time they apply to our school, in which we put them through a very deep leadership assessment, working with a Princeton-based company called Caliper, in which we look at multiple intelligences. They are interviewed in the offices of all our industry friends. Like in Bangalore, the interviews would take place in, for example, in companies like Symphony Services or in TVS or in Infosys, and in Bombay, companies like Tata and Mahindra and so on. So these interviews are done in the site of our companies supporting us. This is called a talent appreciation process, in which people really take responsibility for that, on getting the right kind of talent. And with the help of these companies, we then get these people to come to SOIL. In the opening week itself, they develop an individual development plan. Each student is assigned a mentor to help them to define the larger questions in their life, which is regularly reviewed. There is an internal mentor as well as an external mentor. And 40% of our one-year course is spent on the basic disciplines of finance, marketing, operations, IT, HR. The other time is all spent on really understanding how to develop the way you think holistically. So we spend a lot of time on social innovation. One day in a week, our students work with a cause with an NGO. Then we have faculty who come from all over the world, from the top schools, who work with our students to really help them to discover their own inner potential, develop the confidence, and develop that way of being, so that they can pick up a cause and go and make an impact. And at this point, I just want to share quickly some stories of transformation. There is Sahil Seth, who passed out of our program last year from a business leadership program, who has some wonderful things to talk about. The 1 year here, besides being an outstanding student, he's also a brilliant cricketer. He's also somebody who started a tournament in our school called the SOIL Premier League, in which he brought people to understand the power of teamwork through sports. And he moved from being a pure techie person to then really transforming his whole life towards this. There's another student called Avirup Mukherjee, who was in our program specializing in HR. In fact, he was chosen last year by the People Matters magazine and Society for Human Resource Management as amongst the top 25 future HR leaders of India while he was studying with us. It was a great honor for him and to our school. Here are stories about the mother of a student called Sukriti Sinha, who is again a techie who studied here and worked in our HR program. There are a large number of students who have switched over from IT roles to HR roles in our school. And here is how the mother describes Sukriti. She says, the first change that I noticed was a dramatic increase in her whole sense of who she was. I could understand that she is developing. She's got this inculcating deep family values. But there is something that was truly important there, that it was a match between human values and her. And so we started finding that Sukriti started really becoming far more sensitive to her family and people around her. Here is Prithvi Shergill, the head of HR for HCL Technologies, which is one of the biggest recruiters on our campus, which comes every year and recruits people. It says the professionalism and ability to learn are the qualities demonstrated by the SOIL students. And we really find their ability to collaborate and solve problems. So there are some very fascinating things that Prithvi talks about, and we are very proud of what he talks about the SOIL students. Here are some others There are some others who have been talked about a lot. So I think I can go on and on about different people who have made a real difference in SOIL. But I think the idea was not to tell you more about those students. But there is a young man called Sabrish. He talked about. Here is a board member. And here are some specific examples of how people from the techies, for example, here is Ajay Singh, who was in Infosys as a senior systems engineer, and he made his career track change. He now works with Amul as in sales and marketing dimension. Here is Anand Patil, who was in Winsoft as a senior QA engineer, and now he's working in Axis Bank in HR. Arun Kumar Sahu was in Accenture as a software engineer, and now he works with HCL in pre-sales. Manu Malhotra, who was in CSC, now is a marketing manager with Ottbridge. And there are several such examples. But really speaking, I think the last point here is of Gurleen Kaur, that quote down below. She said, MBA at SOIL gave me a platform for holistic learning. It helped me to realize my unknown self. It thereby led me to discover where I want to go and what I want to do. And she is currently working as an HR consultant in Mercer Consulting. And her past job was a software engineer with Infosys Technology. So it's not just important for these students to understand that what their past role was and how to do an MBA to get into, for example, the global leadership cadre of Tech Mahindra, or to become an HR person from a software developer. But the common theme behind all these students is really what I will go back to what I said in the beginning. We started asking them the questions, and I personally teach this class on self-leadership to say, first of all, to summarize, go back to your past life, understand when you were at your best. From that, find out your most joyful moments. Find out from those what enabled you to do your best, your real strength. Then in silence, in regular intervals, ask yourself the question, what are my dreams for the world? What am I inspired to do to make a difference? And it's a difficult question because it may not come readily, because the usual questions the world will throw at you is how to get into a fast career track, how to earn more money, how to reach a certain position in life. But all this, the position, the money, the power, behind that comes the question, what do I do to make a difference? So what's the purpose in your life that you are truly inspired by? Do you have understanding about now? If you have already found a sense of purpose in your life, I compliment you, because that means you are already an inspired leader. But if you have not found it, we encourage our students to spend a lot of time in spending time with themselves, in the process, in the silence, being with themselves, so that they can answer this question on their own calling and purpose. Once you do that, then ask yourself the question, how do you prepare to work for this cause? Let me give an example. Suppose you have moved a lot to do something in the world of environment to really make the world better because you're really concerned, let's say, about the diminishing water in this country or in this world. And then you say, I want to work with a company that has a strong program on sustainability. Then you do your research and say, for example, Mahindra & Mahindra has a very strong sustainability program, or say Tata Steel has got a big effort on sustainability, and these are the companies that come to the campus. So how do I prepare myself for my dream companies and my dream roles? How do I get an entry into this? Or you might say, I want to become really a social entrepreneur or an entrepreneur. I have found my purpose and I have to prepare my life in preparing for it. So then work and say, how do you create opportunities for yourself to really join these organizations which are making a difference in this world, so that you can change from your current role of being a technical person to work on a cause that is important to you? And how do you prepare yourself for getting opportunities in these organizations? Or if you want to be an entrepreneur or a social entrepreneur, how do you develop a network? How do you develop the knowledge and the capability of becoming an entrepreneur? In either way, whether you want to join organizations who are working on the causes that are dear to you, or you are moved by the purpose of your own becoming an entrepreneur, then ask yourself the question, how do you choose the areas in which you should develop? What should you learn more of? How should you spend your time? And then consciously develop a plan for your own self-development so that you can develop the competence by using your own strengths and then developing an action plan on actually making change happen. In other words, leading your own life, your own purpose in a powerful way. In short, the transition from a technical role to a management role is one of asking fundamental questions. Who am I? Why am I here? Where am I going? And how do I get there? So at this point, I'll be very happy to take questions because we've already spent nearly 37, 38 minutes in one-way dialogue. I would love to hear your response to what I just said, and I would love to take your questions. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Anil, for that really nice presentation, and I'm sure people would get back to us with feedback and suggestions. As of now, we do have a couple of questions. If you want, I can start reading out the questions one by one to you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have a question coming in from Raji Stephen, and Raji is asking, why are industries always measuring management success in terms of money?
Well, you know, companies who measure success, management success only in terms of money, such companies are not sustainable in the long term. And there are many companies which have, after success of 10, 20 years, only chasing profit or money as a measure of success, have not lasted for long. They may last and may grow very rapidly for 5, 10, 15, even 20 years, but they are not sustainable companies. They get sold, or they get dissolved, or they go out of business. So therefore, all over the world, in all good companies these days, there is a framework which originally shifted from profit to also people, and people included both customers and employees. And then they started finding that that is not enough. We should have weightage given to customers, we should give weightage to employees, and also, of course, the shareholders and profit. But then they realized even that is not enough. We should now also give focus to the environment in terms of the community and in terms of the ecological system, because if you don't really develop things which are contributing to the larger social good or environmental good, then such companies will be again also found out, and people will prefer to do business with those companies which are much more socially responsible and environmentally responsible. So in fact, there is research now shows, both in India as well as globally, that companies which look at this multiple stakeholder view, which we call planet, profit, and people, such companies, even performance on many factors is much better than other companies. Their employee retention is higher, their customer satisfaction scores are higher, the brand value is higher, and even profitability of a sustainable kind is higher. So I think companies have realized at their own peril that if they focus only on money, they will be found out in the long term. Please go ahead. The next question, please.
Yes, Anil. Question coming from Harsha, and he's asking, where does our mind play within the 6 layers of self?
Yes, so the concept of mind has got two dimensions. One is the emotional mind that plays in the circle of the emotional field after the instinct. The other is the intellectual mind or the thinking mind that is in the circle where we talk about making choices and ethics. So really there is a lower mind which is emotions, there is higher mind which is thinking and thoughts and taking decisions. So these two layers combined are what we call mind, which keeps on changing. And of course mind is also influenced by the body and the impulses. It is also impacted by the instinct that one gets, the past tendencies that one might have, and therefore the mind is something which is a concept which plays up, which is stimulated by the outer two layers, but is experienced in the third and fourth layer. And of course there is then beyond mind, which is the deep, let's say, notions of right and wrong, which beyond the mind get embedded in our identity, which is what we call ego. But also sometimes the mind has some experiences which also get embedded in the ego, which are our habits and which are also our fears. So I think that therefore to simplify, the third and fourth layer are the mind layers. Please go ahead.
Okay. There's a question from Deepthi Devikar, and she's asking, what if in the process of achieving what I desire, I disturb the current stability in my life in terms of finances, the time I give to important people in my life? What happens then?
You see, for any improvement to begin, you have to ask yourself the question, is it just improvement for the sake of improvement, or is it transformation towards a happier and better life? Change towards happiness is called transformation. Change for change's sake is called simply improvement. So transformation is what we are talking about. If you want to transform your life for the better, that means there is an urge inside you to be happier, to be more joyful, and to spread happiness to others. When that happens, in the short term, you will be creating circumstances for yourself where you will be giving up certain things because you are, for example, you may be giving up some superficial friendships which actually don't mean anything, and you will be surrounding yourself instead with those kinds of friends whose worldview also is about making a difference. That means instead of having some, let's say, 500 friends on Facebook and getting 100 likes on your Facebook posting and video, you will instead be probably developing a really good friendship with the 5 people who you want to hang around with, who really want to make a difference. And 5 of you pick up a cause. You really are interested in making a difference. So you are giving up something which apparently looks the current issue, but you are moving towards something which is truly important. Now, it also is possible that if you are very, very inspired to make a difference, and there is a part of you which wants to do that, wants to work on a cause, but there is pressure from family and friends which says, no, 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 how can you do that? You cannot afford to, you first must earn enough money. Then the question, of course, is how do you get your family and near and dear ones to support your dream? Once they come to know that it will give you a lot of happiness, then the near and dear ones who matter are the ones who want you to be truly happy. Let me give an example of a student. We have a student called Sichel, who's Sitesh. Sitesh is somebody who's working in Bhagalpur in Bihar. This chap from our campus joined a company called Mother Dairy, which is the National Dairy Development Board. And there he started dreaming about the fact that he actually wants to go and serve the poor in Bhagalpur. He was very inspired by that thought. So he and one of his old friends from his engineering school got together, and they went in Bhagalpur and invented space. They created a program called Lakshya Center for Learning for the Poor Children there. And they had lots of difficulties, but Sitesh came to meet me the other day, And he said, sir, ऐसा है, I mean, this is for those who understand Hindi. Sir, ऐसा है, हम लोग पैसा इतना थोड़ा बहुत कमाते हैं, उसमें से मेरे लिए अपने खाने पीने के लिए 7,000 रुपया मेरे लिए बच जाता है. 7,000 rupees. And he said, sir, that 7,000 rupees is enough for me to eat and to live. And frankly, it is giving me so much happiness to work with these poor children. Now, of course, Sitesh's parents and family and everybody told him, why are you giving up this job which is earning you so many lakhs? Why did you go and study in soil and do the MBA if all you wanted to do was to go and serve the poor children? So he told them, it is because I went to soil, because I discovered my inner coiling, because I discovered this friendship, because every student in soil who was his friend gave their deposit money of 30,000 rupees to him so that he could go and set up the Laksha Center. So he said that what has given me joy is immense. So to my friend who has asked this question, let me tell you, your best friends and your near and dear ones, all they want from your life is your happiness. If your happiness initially causes some financial difficulty, but you will find a way even to overcome that, because the cause in your heart is very deep. That is what I would recommend. Next question, please.
Yes, thank you, Anil, for answering that. One more question coming in from Harsha. He's asking, what are the top 5 qualities for getting into management role from technical responsibilities?
So what are the 5 top qualities to get into a management role from a technical role? The first quality is how to enable or facilitate teamwork. Which means earlier you are a member of a team, now you have to give thought to how to get the best out of the team. That means, how do you do that? First of all, you have to understand each person's strengths carefully. As a team member also you need to do that, but as a team leader or a team supervisor or as a manager, you have to understand what each person's strengths are. Then you have to ask yourself the question, which work would best suit that person's strengths, rather than putting your whole focus on what are the weaknesses of the person and then trying to evaluate the person and telling the person how the person does not fit into the particular job. A really good manager and a leader's goal is to find work that will really suit the strengths, and then you have to learn how to give timely feedback to a person in an honest way. Remind the person about the strengths, also give feedback to the person instantaneously about what the person is not doing right, and that requires a skill on how do you give feedback without putting down the person. You have to learn how to criticize output without criticizing the individual, and this is a very important skill. Then you have to learn how do you really take responsibility for defining the outcomes. That means you have to make a plan to say, what should be my dashboard as a manager? What should I be measuring? Because if you measure the wrong things, it can make a huge difference by you are going in the wrong direction. So what are those few metrics that I should regularly measure, because only if I measure things I can improve things. So that is it. And the last point is, how do I as a manager actually constantly be aware on what I need to do differently instead of focusing only on getting work done from others, because I am an individual contributor as well as a manager, not just as a supervisor. That means, what do I need to do, what do I need to learn, what do I need to do differently so that I am a better leader, a better manager and a better facilitator. So these are some of the things that I would emphasize.
Okay, moving on. We have a question from Janmay
Please go
Jai.
ahead.
Yes, Anil. We have a
Yes,
question
Janmay.
coming in from Janmay Jai, and he's saying, I'm a technical person, a technical lead rather, working with geographic information system. I would like to move myself into project management and operation. Could you please suggest me
Yes.
if an MBA or PG diploma in operations or project management will help me?
I think when you move from a technical role into project management kind of role, I think the most important thing in project management is that you should be conscious of detailed planning. That means it requires clarity of thought. It requires the good understanding of the detailed steps. It requires good understanding of resources. Again, it requires a good understanding of allocating tasks to different resources and metrics and doing all that. Now, even though the subject is project management, actually you must have a deep knowledge of the customer side of project. You must have a deep understanding of the supplier side of the project. You must have a deep understanding of the financial dimensions of the project. You must have a deep understanding of the people dimension of the project. That means you must understand the market and customer, the world of finance, the world of supplies and operations, and the world of people. Now, a really good quality MBA program which emphasizes this basic grounding is a must. On top of that, there are MBA courses. For example, in our own school in Soil, we encourage our students to also do the certification for project management. And I think that additional certification while you study in a good MBA program enables you not just to be certified with an internationally recognized certification, but also apply that knowledge in managing projects in the school, which are of increasing complexity. So, we give our students projects and encourage them to use the project management framework when they are working on social innovation, for example. So you actually practice that not at the client's end by learning at the client's cost, but you are doing that in an academic environment so that you learn how to actually do project management. And by the time you finish, you are pretty much competent to do that. So my short answer is, really, you must do a high quality education, a good MBA program which emphasizes a holistic view, because the reason why, especially countries like India, projects are not implemented on time, especially in sectors like infrastructure and so on, is because of the problems in change management and a holistic view. There are NGOs who will take us to court, political interference, and all kinds of things. And so I think it's very important for us to take a worldview which is there in a holistic way. So please join a good MBA program with a holistic vision and actually practice the project management inside the institute and get a certification before you choose a career in that area.
Okay, should I move on to the next question?
More questions?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
So a question from Vijay. He's saying, I'm working as a team lead. I have recently moved into this role. How do I overcome the fear of losing?
Wow, Vijay, thank you for asking this question, and thank you for having the courage to do so, because a lot of us have this fear of losing but don't express it. So, Vijay, the fear of losing comes because, if I can first say it in Hindi, one of our favorite teachers who comes and teaches in Soil is a Buddhist monk called Nitya Shanti, and he makes a very nice statement. He says, "Sabse bada rog kya kahenge log?" So, which means we are so much concerned about what others would say that this anxiety about feedback from others impacts our very purpose. So my suggestion is, just like if you are really inspired by a higher cause, then what people will say doesn't matter, because your intention is pure. You are inspired by making a difference. And when you are inspired by such a cause and you are connecting your everyday work, let me give an example. When I was on the board of iShare and I used to head their functions of HR and quality and planning and so on, in that assignment many years back, I had a young shy assistant called Abha Nanda, who was a young girl who worked with me, who was a young graduate from Solan in Himachal Pradesh. And Abha had this very powerful dream. We were doing a visioning workshop for our staff in which she said she has a dream of setting up a school for animals, because she was a great animal lover. Then I said to Abha, see, you don't have a father, your brother is studying, you have a need to support your mother. If you open up a school for these animals, how will you look after yourself and your family? So she said, yes, that's why I keep dreaming, but I can't do something about it. I said, now, what do you think you can do in the workplace in iShare, which is closest to helping animals? She said, I am very shy, but closest to really being animals is I have a need to help people. But I don't know if I have the confidence to actually work in that area. So we understood that Abha could have potential to work in HR. We encouraged her. She began to focus on that vision of really making a difference. So we transferred her from being my secretary into HR. She began to work on it. I made her present a paper in a national conference. She grew in confidence. Then she began to love the job of helping people, which is what HR is about. And today, Aba Nanda is a senior vice president of HR of EXL, which means when she was always having fear about what will others say, or I don't have the confidence, or how can I get into a role like that, I don't have any education or background. That means when she was thinking about losing, it was preventing her from doing. But when she found that inner purpose and call, and we gave her a lot of encouragement and an opportunity, she began to flower. And today she is super confident. If you see her presenting in this seminar, on a webinar, maybe the organizer should call her. Maybe she'll do a better job than me. And you know, I've seen many such examples in life. When people find a sense of purpose, they forget about losing. Then it's about focusing on the purpose, and it's not about winning and losing anymore. Please go ahead.
Okay.
Next question.
Next question is from Rakesh. He's asking how to identify the right person to be in your core team as a leader.
Very good question. So how do I find the right person in my team to be the leader? You know, there are several aspects that will make people stand out. One, does the person A have the way of giving credit, sharing credit with others? A wonderful leader in a team is somebody who shares credit. Two, does this person find a way of helping people to organize themselves, especially when some unexpected developments take place? In a project or in any work, there are some small crises or problems. The persons who find a way out of helping each other to do that, and people who really find a way to help each other, and those people in the team who emerge, who actually find a way to overcome that by getting the team together, but convening the team around important questions. That means such people who convene people around the right questions in hour of need, you will see signs of leadership. That means I like the notion of a leader being a social architect. What do I mean by that? Inviting the right people around the right questions and then getting out of the way. So in a team, suppose Anurag was working with me, or Karan, we are asking ourselves the question, how do we attract the very best students to apply to SOIL? And let's say that Karan tells me that, Anil, what we should do is we should pick up 3 people from our team, one of them who's of this kind, the other of this kind, the third of this kind, and let's pose an important question to them to say, what is most important to them in their choice of education? That means they are now convening the right people around the right question. So that is an act of leadership. So I think these are some of the qualities to watch for in a team. And sharing credit, people who find their ways out by enabling others, people who bring people around the right questions, and not people who keep giving answers, but who keep asking the right questions. And therefore, the last thing I will say is the really good quality of a wonderful leader is somebody who asks the right question, not somebody who gives the right answer. That's what this is about.
Wonderful
Any
thought.
last question before we close up?
Yeah, wonderful
Yes,
thought. Yeah. Well, we have a lot of questions left, but yes, we are running out of time. I'll give you maybe 2 more questions if that's okay with you.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a question coming in from Gaurav Atre. He's asking, what if you have answers for all your questions, but you are not confident enough to take risks?
The risk taking, yeah, you have the answers, but you are not confident of taking risk. Actually, we don't take risks because of 5 reasons. One is, of course, the fear of criticism that we talked about earlier. The other is fear of failure. That means we just worry about the fear of failure. The third is the fear of lack of time and resources. That if I do this and if I fail, how will I recreate my life? There is also the fear of ambiguity, especially those of us who are engineers. We sometimes get very blocked to ambiguity because we are not used to that ambiguity. And we also have a fear of loss of self-image, which is closely linked to fear of criticism. I think for all these fears which prevent us to take risks, I have the one answer. If you find something to deeply love, if you find something to follow, become the world's best follower of a cause, you will automatically take risks. Be passionate. That's what happens to entrepreneurs. That's what happens to real leaders. You know, even this man like Arvind Kejriwal, you may agree with him or disagree with him. But look at the man. He has completely dedicated his life to trying to make the country better. His methods may be highly questionable. I'm not trying to engage in a political talk, but I salute the spirit of people like Arvind Kejriwal, that instead of trying to sit on the armchair and saying you are not, the country is bad, they have dedicated their life, and there are so many such people in every generation. So I salute the spirit of those of us who, instead of saying nothing can be done, they pick up a cause and work on it. The last question, please.
Yes, the last question we'll take up for the day. Question from Saravanan. He's asking what kind of technique has to be inculcated for the transformation from technical to management. Yeah, I think he's asking the kind of techniques required to transform from technical to management role. I mean, his question is little incomplete.
Okay, I will give you some very simple techniques. Technique number one, every day take 10 minutes before you sleep on doing introspection on how was your day. And ask yourself the question, what difference did I make today? And then ask yourself the question, what do I have to thank for? What is my sense of gratitude for the day today? So if you start following this simple technique of saying, how did I spend my time? What difference did I make? And what do I have to thank for? And then if you can make another simple technique, because all of us need to develop more self-confidence and a sense of joy, then whatever is your concept of God, whether it is Allah or it is Krishna or it is Jesus, doesn't matter what, then do a simple technique. When the clock turns the hour, every hour, and this I am quoting from Sadhu Vaswani, one of our greatest spiritual masters who lived today, who says, when you are too much worried about what will happen and fear and so on, when the clock turns the hour, for every hour ask yourself the question, I am not alone, God is with me. I am not alone, God is with me. And I like to end by giving a quote from my spiritual teacher, Swami Chinmayananda, one of the greatest human beings who lived in this planet, who taught us, once you are truly inspired, then you remember, unless we have a definite path in the goal of our existence, and unless we believe and work for that cause, and we actually come to experience the goal positively, then we really become successful. I think it is the same thing that Gurudev said. Find a cause, rise in love, and then roar like a tiger. Success will come to you. My very best to each one of you for this wonderful, stimulating webinar. I don't know about you, but I have greatly enjoyed being stimulated by your questions. Thank you very much for your brilliant questions.
Thank you so much, Anil. I mean, really wonderful, wonderful thoughts throughout this one hour session, and I'm pretty sure people will have more to share, have more questions to ask, and it's a request that all of you can continue this discussion and post your queries on our discussion forum, because this is a topic which I'm sure will leave you with a lot of questions to ask. Questions you want to ask yourself and questions you can ask the expert. So thank you once again, Anil, for taking time out today and giving this brilliant presentation, and we hope to have you again in our upcoming webinars, probably a continuity of today's session that could also be done. And thanks so much all the attendees. Thanks all the attendees for joining in and for your fair support, without which this webinar wouldn't have been a success today. The recording of today's session will be available on techgig.com by tomorrow afternoon. So please feel free to come and check the video and go through all the slides. And as I already mentioned, you can either drop us the query directly or come on the discussion forum of techgig.com and post your queries there. So on that note, I'm going to wrap up today's session. Thank you once again, Anil. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Enjoyed it. Thank you very much.